Hello and welcome to the Shadow and Soul Storytime podcast. I'm your host, Rayneen, and in these episodes we dive deep into shadowy and soulful conversation with the intention of sharing the lessons and the medicine that live within our personal stories and everyday experiences. In this episode, I am so grateful and so excited to have been joined by Nathaly Granja, also known as the Oracle CEO, for a beautiful and vulnerable conversation around visibility. The fears, the desires, the wounds, all of it, the reprogramming, the repatterning. I am so excited to share this with you. It has been such a gift on my end to receive, and I know it'll be such a gift for you too. So before we dive into the conversation, an invitation so that you can better receive the gift that is this conversation to take a moment. If you're driving, keep your eyes on the road, stay focused, take a couple of deep breaths with us. If you're able, maybe close your eyes, really taking a couple of deep breaths with this intention of, may I be more present, may I be right here, may the wisdom of my body wake up, may I listen with the entirety of my being so that all of me is here to receive, and may I be so aware of the things that bubble up, and may I be curious to lean into those things and to have the discernment to be able to sift through and find the medicine that is here for you. All right. Thank you so much. Let's dive in. Hello. I am so excited to have with me today Nathaly Granja. So just to share a little bit more about my relationship with her, how I found her. I first heard you through the Feed Your Wild podcast with Vanessa. And I think I was just like cleaning the house and just kind of like binge like listening. And I remember almost immediately like the way that you dropped in so personally, like sharing your personal self and your stories, and especially then talking about like shadowy stuff and shadow work. It was like, oh my God, like I just like eat that shit up. And so for the rest of the episode, I was just like, oh, this is so good. This is so good. This is so good. And after the episode ended, I just went and found you, like, what's your profile? Like, do you have a podcast? And then I just started to like take in more and more and more and more and more. And I loved it. And it's one of those things where what's come up several times as I've continued to just like really dive into your content is this, this like saying that I used to hear a lot, especially when I was more steeped in the yoga world. And it was that the student will find the teacher when the student is ready. And it just felt like one of those things where it was like, oh, like this is like exactly like what I'm needing, like right now, like right now. And so I remember feeling like, okay, well, I'm going to reach out and I'm just going to see like if she's interested, if she would come on the podcast. And I remember at first that it like, there was some time between the response and I was like, oh man, I fucked up. Like I should have waited longer. I should have waited till I had more episodes, like just all the shenanigans, all the stories. But then you did get back to me and you're like, oh man, I thought I lost this thread. Like, yes. I was like, yes, this is so good. And so, yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have you here to like get to know you, to hear more stories about your background and what it is that you want to share with us today. And also I'm just excited because, so for those listening, like this is actually a really big week for me and Nathaly personally, because we have our podcast today. Tomorrow, I'm really excited. I get to enjoy a private session with her. And then I'm also diving into a new moon workshop with her, I think the very next day. Or Thursday. So yes, I'm super excited. So yes, thank you so much for being here. And I would love for you to take a moment to share with those listening just a little bit more about yourself so they can feel into who they get to hang out with today.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for that reflection. I love hearing about like how we connected, like even though it was sort of recent. Hearing you say like that on that podcast with Vanessa, you heard me share so vulnerably and like share the shadow stuff that I moved through. I really am so taking in that reflection, because part of what we're going to talk about today is like vulnerability and visibility. And I think it's so innate to me now to just share truthfully, um, and authentically, and all of me, that I think maybe some part of me is taking that for granted, to be like, right, that is a gift. Like, that is medicine for people.
Mhm.
And um, I just really appreciate that reflection, because it wasn't always like that. So it feels good to be like, wow, that's what I'm recognized for. So yeah, my name is Nathaly, and I'm an oracle, and I primarily work with creatives, entrepreneurs. I call them healers, leaders, and disruptors. And I'm a guide. For me, it's like all about guiding someone's energetic, unseen world, so that we can make it tangible in the 3D world via the medicine, the work that they're here to do. So that's going to look like messaging, that's going to look like visibility, that looks like reprogramming, that looks like branding, all things that are in the umbrella of a business. I call it like nose to tail. I do everything within the business, and I support people in stepping into what's authentic for them, how they want to spend their life, how they want to spend their day to day, what that looks like for them. And I'm super passionate about that, because I'm really, especially as feminine beings, we're cyclical. We're not meant to be consistent. We're meant to have a beautiful, abundant, nourishing life. And I think that when we step into business, that somehow gets disconnected, because the templates that we've had have been basically trying to apply the unseen, psychic, spiritual, healing world to a template that is not designed for it. So I'm really passionate about helping people understand, what does your most abundant timeline look like out of all the timelines in the universe. Like, what does yours look like? How does that look like when you design it intentionally? And of course, that starts with the financial freedom and the time freedom that we have to have in our business in order for that to ripple effect everywhere else. Um, so my background is as a Reiki master teacher, hypnotist. Those were my two biggest modalities. As of the last couple of years, I've also included human design, which has been a really eye-opening and expansive modality as well, because it really has given me language for something that I was already describing, already doing. And so in that, it's all about looking at the shadows of what is coming up. So for example, if I'm saying, okay, what is your value proposition? Like, let's work on this. It's not just about the words we're putting on paper. It's the relationship to those words. It's what's coming up. It's, what are you choosing? What are you claiming? What are you allowing yourself to be seen for? And so on. So yeah, my world, my work is really about the unseen world and how we are going to tangibilize it into the 3D in order to have your most abundant timeline.
Heck yeah. I love that so much. Thank you so much. So, on that, what is it? What is this like topic and theme, and like what are our stories going to revolve around today?
Yeah. So when I was tuning into this, it was interesting to notice, like, my mind is like, okay, make sure it's really valuable, right? Like, it needs to be valuable to the people who are going to be listening. And so what would be really valuable to that? And like, I could just notice my mind trying to answer. And I loved your prompt to be like, move, go walk, go do something, go, shake, notice what wants to come through after that. And so, I kind of what ran across my forehead was like visibility. And then but I just was like, okay, I'm just going to move. I'm going to dance around. I'm going to see what happens. And it was like, oh, it's visibility. Like, I think all roads really lead back to that for me and my clients. And the iteration of like where their healing is, it is around visibility. So I guess I can start with that.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
selfishly very excited because I've got so much stuff around this coming up. So yeah. Oh, let's,
Yay.
let's dive in.
So the first thing is to define like what is visibility. Um, and visibility in its simplest form is the state of being able to see and to be seen or to be seen. And so the first thing when I'm working with someone is like, okay, when you hear visibility, what does that feel like in your body? And I'll even tune into my body. You can tune into yours. Right now at this place, when I feel into visibility, I feel expansion in my solar plexus. I my hands begin to tingle, and usually that's when I'm like I feel like my channel is on. It's like my hands begin to tingle, and I feel the edge, my edge of like, oh, this I've been very comfortable with this level of visibility for however many years, but I know that what I'm being asked for this year is
Mm.
to universalize my message, to make it on a at scale, if you will. And that is an edge for me because it's really cozy in my boutique community of humans where I get to DM with them and get to chat with them, and that feels so cozy and comfortable because that's how I am in person. I'm like, come in my house, let's hang out. So then it's like, whoo, to be at scale means that something would have to shift. That means it could look like my availability energetically, my capacity is different if I'm at scale. It
Mhm.
could look like, possibly moving through more projections and projection fields. So, okay, what does that mean for me? How do I equip myself for that level of visibility? So, that's the first thing. When you tune into visibility, what comes up for you? What does that feel like? And then, even before I get into my story, I want to say that two things can exist at the same time. So, if you're listening to this and I've had clients that have like lots of Leo placement or Aquarius placement where they're like, yeah, outside the box, like totally, whatever it might be. And they have this hunger, they have this drive, they have this desire to, I want to be seen, I want to have a community, I want all that. But then at the same time, it's like, oh, but that's not comfortable. I'm scared, or, I'm at threat in some way.
Mhm.
So I want to like make room for both because I think what my story is that I have both. Like I have room for both, where it's like, I've always wanted to have some sort of audience. Growing up, I wanted to be a journalist. Then I wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to like litigate, and I wanted to do all these things that happen to have some sort of audience. And I wanted to write books and all the things. And so cool, cool, cool. Like as all this is happening, like and it becomes more real. Oh, whoa, I'm aware of being perceived. Oh, what does that feel like that someone's watching my stories? Someone is listening to this podcast. What is their perception of me? Right. So all of that. So again, two things can live at the same time. And the other thing I want to say before I continue with the story is I much rather go at my clients or at my body's pace
Mhm.
than dysregulate myself for the sake of more followers or more like whatever.
Mhm.
Especially because for a lot of people, and I use myself for sure in this, visibility is a can feel like a threat to our system,
Mhm.
especially if you have a history where literally being visible puts your safety at threat. And that could be anything, all sorts of abuse that could have happened. It could be it could have just been a one-time situation. It could have been prolonged, whatever it might be. Maybe it wasn't you, it was your ancestors, maybe your great grandparents, experienced some sort of persecution, whatever it might be. That is what's living in the body. And so when people are like, just go on Instagram Live and do a thing or whatever, I understand the practicality behind that. And I also understand that it's not just going on an Instagram Live or whatever it might be. It's so much more than that for some people. And that's where I like to meet people. I want to sit with that and help grow that capacity so that hand in hand we can see the 3D manifestation of what it looks like to bring safety back into the body. So where this sort of begins for me is it's interesting because I had one like specific thing in mind, but it's actually like going back deeper. So I'll start there. When my mom conceived me, she was told that I would have Down syndrome, and they did amnio testing where they put like the needle in the tummy, which is a high. It's you're actually putting your baby at risk when you do that because you could have like infection and stuff like that. But she chose to do that to see like, okay, exactly what was happening. And they still said I was going to have Down syndrome. And, my mom had a lot of different emotions about that. It was experiencing some grief for the life that she thought I wasn't going to be able to live. And the people around her, at that time just told her to abort the pregnancy because it just wouldn't be fair for her to bring this type of life into the world if I'm just going to suffer. And so I think a lot of my imprinting because of that experience and basically throughout the pregnancy until she gave birth is when they were like, oh, she doesn't have Down syndrome. So, it was a very difficult pregnancy because the whole time she was torn and she was making a decision to keep me, knowing that she didn't have the support and what would that look like? She had to justify she had to justify her willingness to keep a child when everyone else was like, come on now. So my imprinting from utero was I need to justify my existence. And bonding with my mom in a way that is me always attuning to her needs, who I love, by the way, but as a child, always attuning, is she okay? Can she handle this? Putting my needs second. So I feel like that was the first imprint that I had to move through. I never felt quite comfortable in my body. I never felt quite comfortable like on the planet. I was very always like in my head, quote unquote, but really just like moving through different dimensions, daydreaming and all that stuff always. And so what's interesting is that as I began to land in my body as a young child, I became energetically big. That's the best way I can put it. I would dance around and talk and put on shows, and I would charge my family members to come see me dance in the living room. And I was obsessed with Shakira. And so it was like I had such big energy. And they all laughed and they welcomed it and it was fine until about elementary school, where my first visibility, oh, this is bad, is when I started to develop breast and I was really young. And so it was like basically attracting all of this attention from all people, adults, men, friends, mothers, my friends. And it was, oh, this is the first time it's like, oh, like, I don't want this attention and I don't know any other way at this point. I am not like, I didn't have the conscious reasoning behind it. It was just like, you've got breast and that means you want attention. And that was what I had dealt with for years. And it evolved into, you know, my friends who I'm still good friends with, actually. So it's not like I'm demonizing them. It's not even like they were just children. But what the fact of the matter is, they would say, oh, all you want is attention. Oh, you are just, you know, you're flirtatious, or you know, anytime you go somewhere, all the attention goes to you, or you're selfish, or you're self-centered, or whatever it might be. But really, I was just being my normal self, and I was doing it through the vehicle of what was now being made wrong. So my introduction to womanhood and my introduction into visibility was tainted with, I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable by you. I'm uncomfortable by how big you're being. I'm uncomfortable by how your body is developing. Your body makes me uncomfortable. Get small. So that existed while my entire development was existing, or was co-creating, on top of the layer of, you have to justify why you're here on this planet. Like, you got to do something important. So it was like this really um imprinted, conditioned way of existing, because eventually, as the world kept on molding me, and as the people in my life, their projections were molding me, um, I became less and less and less and less comfortable in my body, taking up space, and being that girl that had no inhibition, that was just having a grand old time and dancing around. Everything was now being self-conscious, hyper aware. How is someone going to feel about me if I do this, if I do that? And I have this memory of being told by someone in my family, you you're laughing too loud. Women should laugh
Mm-hmm.
quieter. Your laugh is too scandalous. You're being scandalous right now. You need to be quieter when you laugh. Can you imagine? You know, and now, like, when I laugh, it's like the whole room is shaking, because I will not allow myself to hold in my laugh or think about, you know, how are they going to perceive me? I'm going to cackle my little ass off. So, so that's kind of the beginning of that story.
Yeah. The question that's coming up is, at what point did you, and thank you for sharing, like, let me feel for a second, there's so much there. So I love how far you went back, all the way to utero, right? Because I think a lot of times we don't even give thought to what was happening at that time, but we're just this tiny little sensitive being, just like soaking up everything that's happening around us. And that like starts us on our journey. Like that's
Mhm.
literally what starts us off. So thank you for going there and for talking about all the childhood stuff. And I'm curious, at what point did you become aware to these things?
Mhm. Ooh, good question. At what point did I become aware of these things? Probably. Oh, I know when it was. It was the first time I did LSD. um, okay, I actually remember. Yeah, it was the first time I did LSD, and it was the first time since being a child that, and the context is that we were at, it was a group of friends of mine, and we were at a music festival, but not like a big music. It was like out in the woods, like really kind of a quaint one. And I was probably 18. Yeah, I was probably about 18. And um, we, took LSD, and everyone else was, jamming to the music, having a cuddle puddle, like doing whatever. I became Rafiki. I That's what they started to call me. And I somehow at some point got this like big wooden stick. I was in overalls, and I'm walking for 15 hours around this campsite, and I'm by myself. I can feel the vibration of the earth. I am moving, and I'm gone. I am so far gone. I'm not in my ego. Like there's no ego. And um I'm just having all of I kept saying, I remember, I remember, I
Mm.
remember. And I'm like sitting there laughing and remembering and walking in water and doing all these different things and whatever. And my friends who would see me periodically throughout the night were like, Rafiki, like they're like, whoa, like Nathaly, like you are a spiritual teacher. And of course they're tripping too, but it was the first time that I experienced being fully myself without that
Mm.
inhibition. Of course, we can't be in that existence all the time. Like the ego is healthy, the container is healthy, all that is good, but it helped me shatter the box. And it was amazing to be met and recognized by my friends who were like, "Oh, you're something else." Like and I was like, yeah, I am. I am something. Like it was like this remembering all over again. And so a couple weeks later, um, I'm at this party with the same people. And I say to one of my best friends, I'm like, because everyone's like, oh, I heard you like really went far out there. Like everyone's like, oh, you this, you that. Like they're telling me who I am now from their conditioned mind. Now that we're not in that space, they're telling me, oh, you're this, oh, you're that, oh, you're this. And though they're not saying it in a bad, they're not saying anything bad, I can still feel the like, you're different, you're this, And
Mm.
so I say to my best friend, I'm like, am I like, do people think I'm weird?
Mm.
And she just looks at me and she's like, yeah, but that's okay. Oh, my whole timeline shifted in that moment. My whole timeline shifted in that moment because it was like, oh, I'm going to walk around this world and some people are going to think I'm weird and some people aren't going to understand it, but that's okay. And yeah, I think that was when I like realized, oh, everything that I was told was based off of like my own friends' projection and their conditioning and our culture, but it
Mm.
wasn't actually true. Like when they said I was the center of it, that I was trying to become the center of attention, that was their perception because they were uncomfortable with how big I was being and how just me being myself commanded attention without me efforting. Oh, that's what that was. And it was just revelation after revelation for probably the next 5 years of being just in the awareness of like, oh, that family member who told me that my laugh was scandalous, like, that's because she was told that. And she thinks that women are supposed to be quiet. That has nothing to do with me. So that's, yeah.
And when you were, I love that. That's a good friend, by the way, who's like,
Yeah.
yes, and it's
Mhm.
okay. I love
Mhm.
that. So when you were in that period of time where you were starting to realize like the programming basically of like why you
Mhm.
felt this way about yourself, and at that time, did you have any like tools that you were accessing or like any like teachings or practices that helped you to, because it's like stages, right? Like we
Yeah.
become aware and then we can sometimes get stuck in the awareness of it, just like,
Yes.
well, this is
Yep.
it. So
Mhm.
do you have any words around like where it went from like awareness to like working with it and like rewriting and choosing
Yeah.
different and
Yes. 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 Yeah, that's a good point too. Getting stuck in the awareness. I think that like around anything, right? Remembering something or even something that can feel expansive, but if you're stuck there, the awareness can sometimes lead to bitterness, lead to frustration because nothing is now changing, nothing's being actualized. Um, Good question. So I think at that time, I was definitely I was definitely on a meditation journey. Um, You know what? I also remember around this time, there was, I think this app still exists, but it was called Snapchat. I think it still exists. Okay. So, at that time, Snapchat was the only thing that had live stories before Instagram did. And I remember every single day I would go on a walk and I would be listening to music and I'd be moving around and I would like make tea and I would create these ceremonial experiences, like just visual beauty of aesthetic of of nature or whatever. And I would put it on my stories. And I remember that being like the first level of me, not, I wasn't sharing any medicine like I do now per se, but it was the first level of me like tuning into my creativity, making it into something, externalizing it outside of myself, like creating this like little beautiful vlog on Snapchat basically. That was surprisingly really helpful and it makes sense actually. That was really helpful because it allowed me to receive healthy recognition um in a baby step. It wasn't quite about me or about what I'm talking about, but it was like, oh, you're really like, I love watching your videos. Like they're so fun or whatever. Um, I think another big tool, it's always been hypnosis, has been amazing for me. And I wasn't necessarily actively creating hypnotic tracks for myself as much as the tools that one would like the questions that I would ask a client now to help understand like the source, the root, the cause is sort of like those like first 3 or 4 years. That's where I was at, just asking myself in inquiry, constant inquiry of like, but why, but why, but why? Why does this have to be true? Where did that come from? So I think that's really like the self inquiry, allowing my creativity to manifest outside of myself, and just getting quiet. And then I do remember having this oracle deck. I actually still have it. And one of the cards said, your shadow side is actually a gift. And I remember thinking, no, there's no fucking way. How is my ability to like how is that part of me that my friends would at the time say, oh, you, the attention and flirty and this and that, how could that be positive? Like how could that ever be positive? And then I realized, oh, it's the words that I'm using to describe a trait. That is what needs to be reprogrammed. What if the trait is someone is simply um, a leader, but the words that are being used to describe it is what's taking it, it's distorting it. So that's, I think that was the big thing too, where it was like the beginning of my shadow work journey of like, oh, what if these could be gifts? What if these are things that could benefit me? And then slowly again with the inquiry, how could that be true? What could this look like?
Ooh, it's so good. So I feel like this is a really good time to pause for those listening because I feel like there's already a lot that's like been kicked up and stirred up from like being in utero to childhood to friends and their opinions about you, family and their opinions about you. And so for those listening to just take a moment to literally just pause and feel like, is there anything that is starting to bubble up? And just to be really curious. And if you're able, when I listen to podcasts, I love pulling out my journal and like writing down questions. Um, do any questions come to mind for you to offer to them?
Yes. I actually pose this question in some of like my modules with clients where, especially if I'm talking about like money, abundance, that type of thing, I say, what judgments do you have right now? Like, what judgments of me or what I'm saying is coming up at this moment? Cool, no problem. Like, let it come up. because you want to see, ooh, what I'm judging is actually a shadow part. It's something within me. So that's the first thing I would say. Is there anything that you're judging? Is there anything that um, feels that you can relate to? Um, is there anything you want to be seen in? What do you want to be witnessed in as you're hearing this? As you're hearing, like, oh, sometimes when I hear a podcast and I'm hearing how they're being vulnerable or they're sharing about this, if there's an unmet part of myself that hasn't had the space to talk about a specific topic that's really similar, in my own experience, I could feel sort of bitter, like, oh, but like I've gone through that too, or I've experienced that too. And so I just invite those parts of you to come out and be like, where do you want to be witnessed as well? Maybe any part of this story feels really similar to yours, or you have your own version of it. I would want to journal, where do I want to be witnessed? Where do I want to be seen?
Yeah, those are good. Thank you. Oh, let me feel for a second. Because there's so many different roads we can take from where we are right now. I'm curious if there's any that are lit up for you.
Mm. Okay. We can transition the conversation, or basically what the next parts of the story are, and how I landed, how I essentially created the capacity to now do what I do, where I can speak vulnerably, go online, share these things, and sell from that perspective. So um, I think the next level of the visibility that I needed to heal was getting comfortable with my gift set, right? So I grew up, I say this all the time. I grew up on the East Coast of the States in the DC area, where the conditioning culture there are all around politics, higher education, doing things very mainstream, very, very mainstream. So, for example, while I was becoming a Reiki master teacher, some of my peers were, having internships and master's degrees in policy and politics and all these things that were like so different from what I was doing. And I think that was another level of comfortability where I had to own and not justify my gifts. So, for example, in the past, when someone would say, "Oh, what do you do?" Because in the on the East Coast or in the DC area, that is the first thing someone asks, "What do you do?" And that is going to determine how they engage with you or respect you based on what they can get from what you do, networking. And so I remember being like, at the time, I was just doing a shamanic Reiki. I had an in-person practice. And I was like, I'm an energy healer. And they actually, in the Bible, they have laying of hands. And actually, it's the Japanese word for, and it was just like words, like word vomiting to justify or make the other person feel comfortable, or to make them not see me as less than or too woo woo or whatever it was. And I'd be like, a lot of my clients are actually lawyers. A lot of my clients are actually, they work in the White House. And I would, again, try to justify it. I was uncomfortable with how I was being perceived. And so one of the biggest pieces of medicine, and I talk about this all the time, is getting comfortable with the discomfort of people judging you, not understanding you, and not liking you. Because I think I made it my mission to be understood. I needed everyone to just understand that actually this is really important healing. And then eventually this evolved into, well, those people who don't understand are not my clients. So I don't fucking care if they understand me or not. And so like that eventually evolved, right? And then it was like, okay, bringing this into the online space. I had a pretty successful in-person practice. I had my repeat customers that would come every single week for both hypnosis and energy healing. I worked in a really cute part of, it was called Old Town Alexandria, which is a really cute part of town. And, I felt really good about that. And then when I had to move into the online space, and I say had to, both because A, I desired to, I wanted to be location independent, but B, around COVID is when I was like, oh, it's go time. Like, I have to move this into the online space. Before I was like halfway online, halfway in person. And now it was like, it needs to be, fully online. And I think that adjustment for me around the visibility was, seeing the way that everyone else marketed as a spiritual person. So that looked like everyone, and it's totally okay if this is how people market, if it's authentic to them. And that was like, everyone in Bali dancing on a beach, no bra, paint on their face, whatever it was. Like, there was only one aesthetic of spiritual marketing. There was one pathway. And I'm like, but that's not that's not me and this time in my life. That's not my iteration. And so it felt sort of like, okay, now I have to go online and convince people again. I'm met with this like, now I have to convince people of my work again. And I actually already have all this like street cred from in person. How do I bring this online? Like, what the hell? And how do I differentiate myself? And is it okay to differentiate myself? At first, I didn't. At first, I was like, yeah, let me like blend in and speak like all the other spiritual people on here. And let me like make sure people know that I'm really spiritual too. And of course, nothing worked. I completely blended in. I made no money for the first couple of years. And when I tell people that, I want to say that that doesn't have to be true. You can, within your first 6 months of going in the online space, have a really successful business, both internally and externally. And it happens actually through differentiation. And so that's the part of visibility that is really like, are you willing to be seen for what makes you different? Are you willing to be seen for the parts of yourself that you actually thought were too much? Are you willing to be seen for your opinions, even and especially when it contradicts some of your peers, some of your mentors, some of your friends? Can you do that? And I think there's this innate desire to want to be part of our tribe. Of course, that's survival. And you can still belong and differentiate at the same time. And so that's like my favorite part of the business building is the messaging. Like, what does your brand and business like stand on? And it's okay, of course, if there's overlap with other people, but like, it's unique to you. Your voice is never going to be the same as someone else's. So we could talk about the same exact concept and it will manifest completely differently. Can you be comfortable with that? Can you be comfortable with that, the storytelling and the voice? So I think that's where I'm currently existing, is helping people in that process. But also that looked like me too, stepping away from the template of what spirituality should look like and just being like, well, yeah, I listen to Borangi and I listen to temple music all day, but at the same time, like, I get in my car, I'm like, Kanye. Like, at the same time, I'm like blasting like, 21 Savage or like whatever, like rap that like isn't hip, like rap that is, because people could be like, oh, I can't believe they're saying this, but I'm like, yeah, but like I love it. And that's part of me too. And that's okay. And knowing that as I step into that visibility, I remember the first time I like started to put like Kanye music on my stories, I thought like, oh my God, what if like someone says like, well, they're using like that word, you shouldn't use that word. I'm like, but he's saying it, like, and so like, what are they going to say? And I realized, But the people who are meant to work with me, who are meant to be in collaboration with me in some way, and I believe that we wrote those soul contracts before our incarnation, those people can only find me, see me, and recognize me if I'm being fully myself.
Yeah.
If I'm blending in with everybody else, they're not going to be able to remember our soul contract because I'm blended in.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I can speak that it's like, yeah, if you weren't delivering the messages that you were delivering, like the way you were delivering them, like being you, being vulnerable, like it wouldn't have resonated.
Yeah.
It's just been another podcast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the one thing that's coming up, because I want to keep going down like your story, and as it like starts to like the trajectory of like going toward like the business stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to pause before we go further down that line, because I know I feel like those that are listening, at least in my community, I feel like there's like a split. Like I have some people who are in the world of like offering
Mm-hmm.
in this kind of way, and then some who are this medicine is like just for them. I shouldn't say just, but
Right.
it's for them. It's not something that they're like
Gonna monetize.
giving back, right?
Yeah.
Monetize, perfect word. So, because when I feel into like the visibility stuff for myself, I can see it absolutely as it plays out in the world of like business. And I can also see it though where it doesn't necessarily have to do with that either, right? Because there's also just this deep desire to like, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, to just be myself, to express myself, whether that has to do with business or not, because to hide and to be afraid or to, you know, shape shift into something different, like that doesn't feel good either, regardless of whether,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you have a business or not. And so just wanting to like say that for those listening, like regardless of whether you have a business and you're trying to make money doing that, or whether you are using these kinds of things for your own practice and your own introspection, that like I feel like the work is the same and the benefit is the same.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I think that one of the bigger personal ones for me was how do I put this? Being introduced to my in-laws. That was really on a personal level feeling like, you know, I personally don't feel I was accepted off the bat. And now that's totally a different experience. I have a great relationship with them, but I have a great relationship with them because I am more comfortable being myself. So 7 years ago when I met them, um, you know, a family from the South, all white, um, Christian as Christian can come, you know, like it just felt so, you know, all the wives that were married in, tall, blonde, skinny, completely, you know, it's just like, I felt like, where do I fit in here? And at the time, my podcast was called The Rich Witch. Now it's called Oracle Unfiltered, but it was called The Rich Witch. You know, and it was like, you're a witch. What do you mean? You're like, what do you mean? And I'm glad I actually, you know, owned the title Oracle because witch never felt quite correct anyway. But at the time, that's what that was. And energy healing, what do you mean energy healing? And you know, all this, I was just different in every single way, different. And so I remember I could feel the becoming small. I would be around them and become small. I would be around them and um, lose myself. And in retrospect, I can also see all the ways that I tried to assimilate, to try to be accepted, where I would abandon certain parts of myself to be like here, you know, like just to be like, okay, look, I'm like you guys too. Like, look, I have a like I have a Stanley, and like I'm just like you guys. And what's interesting is that my husband has brought up like, you know, there's actually more similarities than there are differences. But actually, when we are feeling and mutually, when we're feeling like, oh, there's a threat into the environment, the only thing we can see are the differences. And it actually, like, the more I became comfortable with myself in my work, in who I am, online, with my clients, with just accepting that, like, again, people are going to not like me, people are going to not understand me, and people are going to judge me, and that's okay. And then I was like, but I'm a good person. I'm a great, like, I'm a great partner. Like, there's no technical reason why someone in my in-law family, like, wouldn't like me, right? And so the more I became comfortable with that, and the more I would just own who I am instead of trying to shapeshift my political view or shapeshift my perception of this or perception of that. And I just owned it. And I didn't have to be, I think before I would also be really defensive. I was always on the defensive. I was ready for someone to not like me. I was ready for someone to judge me. And then eventually it was like, okay, I don't actually need to convince them of anything. It's okay if there's a difference. And the more that I was okay with that, the more I could see our similarities. The more I could be like, oh, wow, you guys did that too. So did I, or whatever. The cultural differences somehow began to fade a little bit. And now I they fully understand who I am, fully accept who I am. I'm sure there's some parts that they still don't understand, or maybe there's some parts that they don't agree with or don't like, but that's just is what it is, you know? Like, when my nieces and nephews and my husband's side are like, why do you have tattoos on your fingers? I'm like, because I do, like, whatever. Like, I'm no longer being like, oh, I should probably hide my tattoos around them. It's like, no, like, this is what I look like, and that's that. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. And I want to invite those listening just to feel into, like, okay, like, what are the ways, I like the word shapeshift, like, what ways are we, like, shifting and changing ourselves to blend in, to fit in, to be accepted, to be understood. Because again, like you said, it's a very, like, innate human thing, right? It's part of our survival to, like, belong to a tribe, to, like, that's how we're safe.
Yeah.
And let me feel for words. The more and more, like, I continue to, like, bump up against that part of myself that starts to feel unsafe, I think I used to look at it and be like, oh, that's not rational, and I would almost like
Mm,
disregard it, and that did not help because it just stayed there. But the more I could look at those fears and the ways that, like, okay, like, I'm doing this because there's a part of me that's afraid, and to really, like, honor that, and to, like, have a conversation with that part of myself and be like, okay, why? Like, why are you afraid? And, like, it's okay. And I totally get it. So when I can be the one who's seeing that part of myself, understanding that part of myself, accepting that part of myself, it felt easier to let go if other people didn't. And then it's like that fear could kind of, like, just soften a little bit. And then it was just this practice of, like, okay, like, who are the people that I feel most safe to be myself with and express myself with? And I'm going to practice the shit out of that, like, with them, and then slowly start to, like, push and push and push.
exactly. It's creating capacity for being witnessed in our differentiated state little by little. And it's so I'm hearing, like, for you, it's having done it with people that you are really comfortable with, and then it's just like pushing past that more and more and more. That's exactly, yeah, that's exactly how I think that is the most grounded, healthiest way is to metabolize it in through capacity. I find that, I think we're really attached to, and yes, this totally exists, and I'm all for the quantum, and I'm all for going at our body's pace. I do not want to self abandon our body for the, like, possibility of the 3D manifestation. And I think sometimes, like, for example, with that LSD trip, had I just been blasted open and stayed that way, it wouldn't be healthy for my 3D experience. I needed to, like, yo-yo back until I found my middle ground for that age, for that capacity. And I think that sometimes people want to have, I can speak for myself. In the beginning, we talked about, before we recorded, a different modality. I'm like, I have done most modalities under the sun. And I did so with the intention, a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times in my younger years, to have that quantum healing. I'm like, if I just have this really amazing healing and this breakthrough experience, like I'm gonna blow up tomorrow. Like I'm gonna go viral. I'm gonna go fit. Like I'm gonna blow. And it's like, sure, that can happen. I have experienced those moments, and those aren't the most sustainable experiences. The most sustainable is the chunk by chunk by chunk shadow integration that happens over time, in my experience.
Yeah. So on this story, and just to like kind of like sum up, so this last piece being like owning your gifts and owning yourself, what was next for you?
Mm. Actually, I think my body is taking me to like, I feel like this is where I've been owning my gifts, allowing myself to be seen for it, allowing myself to be paid for it, which is a whole other thing too. Helping other people understand what theirs are and how to, bring that into the 3D experience. And I actually feel like it's what is next is like this upcoming year. What does that look like for me? I
Okay.
think that's actually the next chapter because I feel
Yeah.
like, yeah, I feel like I'm comfortable and masterful at the current chapter. And I feel like where the edge has been for a while, like I've been able to see it, but I haven't been willing to step into it, is like more and more allowing myself to be recognized for what I can see in the other and guide in the other, and less for what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like less convincing or less like, and then this is why here, and then this is why here, and make sure you, and it's like, no. When you work with me, it is because you are going to be seen and met and guided from a whole different level that you're probably used to, and that is it. When you buy into working with me, you're buying to work with my creative channel, my abundance channel, my psychic channel, and that is enough.
Can I reflect something back to you?
Yes.
So you're saying that this is like what's next. This is like your edge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So as I was continuing to just like take in more and more of your content, I'm trying to remember. I think maybe I saw it first like on a story that you offered like one-on-ones that where
Mhm.
it wasn't this like it had to be a school or this big long
Mhm.
commitment, but just like
Mhm.
single sessions. And I was like, oh. And truthfully, when I first saw that, I was like, oh, that's more than I normally would pay for a private session. And I was like, okay, well, just we're gonna sit with this because
Mhm.
on my own journey, I know when I've come up to things, for me, I have to be very discerning of like when it's a yes, it's a yes. It doesn't matter what my logical brain thinks about it. And so as I continued to lean in, and it was this yes, even though the rational brain was like, but it's just one hour. Blah, blah.
Mhm.
What I came to was like, okay, I hear you. That's fine. And like, what is this yes? Can we feel into what the yes is? And for me, the yes was like, I know. Like, I just have this deep knowing that if I go into this session, she's going to help me see something that I can't see. And like, and in my like being able to name that, and then in my, um, like energetically and financially, and like all of me like investing into that, into myself and into you, the amount of I am like primed and ready. Like primed and ready. And it's just beautiful. It's just this beautiful knowing. And so to hear you say that, just like, you're already doing it.
Yeah.
P.S.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting and I really appreciate that reflection. And yeah, I haven't offered one-off sessions since my in-person practice years ago. So it felt sort of like that was sort of the declaration of being like, yes, in 1 hour, someone will walk away feeling seen, guided, understood, illuminated, and maybe some practicality that we can, a needle mover that could help support that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm like, I already do that in my work, and I want to offer this in a way that's like when someone is like needing, it's almost like efficiency, like this efficient way of like, okay, I'm trusting my channel and my source enough to commit to this and to say yes in 1 hour. So yeah, thank you for that, because it definitely feels like the first step to allowing myself to be recognized in that way. And so what I had to move through in order to even put that offering out there, as simple as it may sound, it actually took a lot of like movement on the other side, because the story was, well, is it diluting my work in any way if I just offer a one-off session versus a whole container?
Mm-hmm.
Or what will people think? Will people think like, oh, she needs to like, whatever, like stories, stories,
Mm-hmm.
stories. And I was like, but what is consistent for me and human design, my authority is emotional authority. And so I go through like a ups and downs when making my decision. And when you like the basically how you know you've landed on a decision is what is the most consistent thing. And for me, the most consistent thing was I want to be able to be with more people with who don't necessarily have to do a long-term container, where my efficiency and my 10 years of personal of mastery of my gift set can help someone in the moment and be that LSD moment where it changes the timeline of who they are,
Mm-hmm.
if they continue to integrate it, of course. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was like, I want this, like what that LSD moment I had when I was 18, where I had that, oh shit, I remember now. That's the experience I want someone to feel when they work with me, that efficient, like awakening.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I love it. I love it. And good work, because it's like, right, it's everything that you've been talking about. It's, like you could easily fall prey to the part of you that's afraid of those judgments. Well, what would they think? And would it be less efficient? And da, 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 da. And it's like all those things are rooted, in some kind of experience that would give it validity, right? So to be fair to that part, I'm sure.
Mhm.
And kind of going back to what you're saying, like if you weren't letting yourself be seen for your full self, then you wouldn't attract those kind of people. The same as if you don't let yourself act on these desires or these ideas and inspirations, then you're not only denying yourself, you're denying other people. Because I truthfully, I was one of those people where I was like, I don't feel like I want or need another program. Like I've had many a program. Like I just
Mhm.
want like someone to help me see what I can't see. And
Yes.
so just
Mhm.
thank you, because
Mhm.
you didn't deny yourself and you're not denying me. And I'm sure there's many other people that feel the same way too. But it is that like, and just to like bring this back for everyone else who's listening too, because again, you started off by saying like, oh, it's nice to have it reflected that the vulnerability is the medicine, right? And so
Mhm.
everything that we're sharing here, like that is the medicine for someone to look at it and be like, okay, well, what is it that I am having ideas and inspirations about that I'm longing to do, and what are the ways that I'm like stopping myself from this judgment, from that fear, whatever. And again, like you're not only denying yourself, you're denying everyone else too.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I'm a huge believer that, and I've seen this. I mean, this is, to me, this is a fact, but when we are birthing an offer, it's not just you, it is a co creation between you, God, Goddess, and those who are praying for a solution. So like if someone is like, man, I really just wish I had this. I really need help with this. I wish I could, be seen in this, or I whatever, right? Like they're praying for this, they're thinking about it, they're talking about it, they're manifesting it. And meanwhile, there's this other person that's like, I really want to be recognized for this thing that I do really easily. I really want to be able to see more people in this way. And then I think it's like our prayers with God, Goddess becomes the offer.
Hmm.
And it's like the offer is never just about us. It's so much bigger than us. It is a fulfillment of a soul contract that we wrote literally before we incarnated on this planet, which is like awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that so much. Let me feel for a second. Is there anything that's bubbling for you? Or any like turn that we didn't take that you wanted to? Does anything feel like unfinished for you?
No, I'm
Okay.
complete.
So I'm wondering if you would be open. So I have a story that's bubbling up for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess I would love to offer that to those listening, and then also see
Yeah.
if there's anything that like you have any reflections around that.
Yeah.
So on this topic of visibility, it's funny because I like where are we? Like maybe a little bit over a month ago when I was feeling into like, oh, what is the next like solo cast that I'm going to do? And this likely still will be one, but it was not time. It was not time. It was
Mm-hmm.
not ready. Like, but because so much of it has been bubbling up, I was like, oh, I should talk about this thing. And it's like, no, not yet. Um, as I have, so this podcast is fairly new. I launched it at the end of October. And as I've allowed myself to be brave and reach out to like more people of like, oh, will you come on? And like just all the putting myself out there, like in all these really big ways. There's been like big events that have happened, but just in the last like couple of weeks, my nervous system has just been like, ugh, like just like gnarled, like very, 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 very struggling, like disruptive dreams, like
Mm.
nonstop anxiety, like and it's because there is this part of me that like is deeply deeply afraid uh, of being seen, and it's in so conflict with the part of me that's like, but I have something to share, like soul is asking me to do this, and it's like this other person's like, don't fucking do it. Like what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing, stop. And what I've noticed is like it was, oh man, it's just continued to just get kicked up and kicked up and kicked up with like more and more and more things. But I'll say, let me make this tangible for a moment. I'll use this one because this is like the most tangible, the one that I feel like I've worked through the most. I remember talking about it I led a mystery school in October, and we were talking about the witch wound,
Mm.
which I heard you say, call it the visibility wound, which I like because I feel like not everyone's going to resonate with that term, but it is the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was talking about that with them, the example that I used was, you know, I long to like there's this deep longing to share more, to grow more community, to expand, like to be bigger, to do this thing. And it is like met with this like resistance of like fear and like no and don't do that. And it's this like kind of like push pull. And when I really sat with like, okay, well, what is the fear? It was like a literal fear because I have a teepee in my backyard. Like I
Mm-hmm.
do offerings out of my teepee. And mystery school was the first time where I did in person and online, like at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a beta test. And what I was like bumping up against in that moment was like, but if I get bigger, like someone is going to come to my house and hurt me. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're like a literal fear that someone
Mm-hmm.
is going to come to my house and like break in and hurt me. And I had to really sit with that, like I said, and not call it irrational, right? Like, because there
Mm-hmm.
part of me is like, I found this irrational fear that, and so I had to catch that language and be like, okay, but maybe it's not irrational, right? Like, there are reasons for that. Like, you have had things in your life that have made you feel unsafe. And even if I look
further back, like in my family line. And then, like you said, like ancestry. I'm like, this is here for a reason. And so one of the things that I did to help, I was talking with a friend at coffee. We're like, okay, we're looking at like our quote unquote irrational fears. And like, let's not call them that anymore. Let's have a conversation with them. Like, let's ask, what can I do to make you feel safer? Because I am doing this thing. Like, I want to do this thing. And I really would love for you to stop sabotaging me at every twist and
Mm-hmm.
turn. So,
Mm-hmm.
how can I make you feel safe? And for me, it was like, all right, I'm going to go to the hardware store and I'm going to buy like new storm doors and I'm going to buy all these like new things and I'm going to look at security systems because it
Mm-hmm.
was just enough soothing to my system to be like, okay, like we can start to take a couple more steps. Now, as I said that, it did help. It did soothe. It really did start to feel better. And I'm still continuing to bump up into more and more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just continuing to try to use that process because that process really worked well. It's like, okay, I see you, little fear. Like, how can I help you? See, it's gnarly.
Oh, yeah. I thank you so much for sharing that. It really brings me back to my own experience with my podcast in the beginning. I started it back in 2018, I think, and I have since archived a bunch of stuff. But in that, I think initially what stopped me was this is a lot. I'm being very vulnerable right now. I'm talking about lots of different things. What if my family hears? What if there's certain things that I'm talking about publicly that people personal to me don't know? And how do I, it was just like, whoa, it was too much. And I had to, and I totally contracted because it was too much, too fast, too soon to my system. I was re traumatizing my body for the sake of being consistent and marketing and sales. And it was like not conducive to the becoming of who I am authentically. So I love that you went and got storm doors. I love that you went and looked at security system because I think that sometimes something I've noticed with clients, um, for example, this one example is coming up when I had a client that was like, "Oh, well, this is just my scarcity, and my scarcity is saying that blah blah blah," and I was like, "Ah, whoa. Don't just dismiss it as scarcity. There's wisdom there. What is what is this thing
Mm-hmm.
telling you?" And so that's what I'm hearing with you, where it's like, I'm afraid that someone can like come to my house, right? I'm a physical threat if I have more eyes who know where I live. And so instead of just bypassing it as like, oh, this is just irrational fear, you sat with it and said, okay, but what's the wisdom here? Like the wisdom is if I am going to have more visibility and people are going to know where I live, I need to protect myself. And that's so healthy. That is so good and rational to me. That makes sense. And so now you've got that. And maybe there's going to be another need. Maybe eventually, as you grow your visibility online, you might have a different need that's like, well, yes, I want in person, but it's going to require a lot more discernment as to who's going to be available to come here.
Mm-hmm.
So two things can exist at the same time. You can grow your voice and your platform while at the same time grow your discernment for what you're available for.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So, before we get into how people can find you and connect with you and a little bit more of what you're offering, is there any final bits you feel to share?
I think that what keeps coming up consistently is um my journey to being successful, quote unquote, because everyone's version of success is different. But for me, it was the internal, like, I'm being recognized by the correct people. The right people are coming into my field. That, and then, of course, as a byproduct, is the financial success. So on paper, my success happened slowly. And it was because I was at first doing it alone, which, had I hired the mentors that I eventually hired sooner, I probably would have had a sooner, experience. But it was like, I was not willing to self abandon myself. I was not willing to perform for the sake of visibility and sales. I just wasn't. And I'm really grateful that I took my time. There was a lot of trial and error in the beginning because, again, I didn't have anyone mentoring or guiding me. But eventually I found the pace of, I much rather have correct agreements with my clients, correct soul agreements, than and people finding me through me being correct with myself, like
Mhm.
being in integrity with myself. I don't show up just to show up. I don't post just to post. I'm in constant relationship to what is true for my body, and I seek support if I'm feeling stuck, right? If I'm feeling like, oh, my mind and body are battling, I don't know what's happening here, support, so that I don't have to be in that constant lingering, right? So I just want to say that if your journey is feeling wobbly, or it's like taking forever, or you're not seeing the 3D results yet, just remember, as long as you are prioritizing and being true to yourself and your body's capacity, you're right on time. You're right on time,
Mhm.
because there's so much wisdom in that slower pace. I have seen some of my dear clients blew up in the beginning and then completely shut down because their body could not handle what was all of the new timeline. They
Yeah.
couldn't physically handle it. And so it would have to be a long pause, integrate everything, understand the shadows, understand the fears, and then continue and basically rebirth a whole new business. And I think the people who don't have to do, not that there's anything wrong with that, but the people who don't have to do that, it's because they're taking their slower pace and
Hmm.
honor with their body. Two
Yeah.
different journeys, not one's better than the other, but just to those who are feeling like, where are the 3D results? It's like, just as long as you're correct with your body, trust that it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I feel like that was so much of like my like the I want to say like the first like 7 years of like my like very like intentional journey was learning how to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started this business that I'm in now, Shadow and Soul, I had come into such a better relationship with that like it's been easier for me to be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not, like you said, I'm not going to post just to post. Like I even had to run up against that since starting the podcast, because there's part of me is like, you need to do it every other week because that's what you said. And when I sat down to be with like myself and my practice and my process, and I was like, all right, what would most serve? Like what topic? And what I got was rest. It was like, oh no, we're actually not going to put anything out. You're actually just going to rest. And I had to grapple with myself because it was like, but I should. But when I really felt that resistance, it's like, no, like we've been there, we've done that. We're not going to do that. Like if your body needs rest, then right. And I think like really what you're saying is like the best thing we can do for ourselves forever and always is just honor like where we are and what we need. And when we do that, what is genuinely and truly like best for ourselves in that moment, that like that is the best ripple effect, even if it's not on, you know, whatever all the expectations. And
Mm-hmm.
so thank you for
Mm-hmm.
that reminder.
Yeah.
All right. So how can people follow along, and what is it that you're up to that, you want to share here? All the good stuff.
Well, people can find me. I'm most active on Instagram, Nathaly Granja _ My podcast is something that I've really been revamping. Um, and that is the Oracle. No, is it the Oracle Unfiltered? Maybe it's just Oracle Unfiltered. I don't know. If you look up Oracle Unfiltered, you'll find me. So those are the two ways to like receive more. And yeah, if you go to the link in my bio, you can see different ways we can work with each other, do customized hypnotic tracks, one-to-one 60-minute illumination sessions, and another, there's an array of different courses, bundles, ways we can work together. Yeah, that's the best way to contact me, probably through Instagram.
Okay. I'll make sure I have all of that in the show notes. And speaking of your hypnotic tracks, so when I was, so you know the story for those listening. So when I was signing up for her new moon workshop, I automatically received the God Money like hypnotic track, and I was like, wait, I didn't pay for this. Like, is this a mistake? Like, or was this a gift? Like, I had to go back and look. And so when I had reached out to her and be like, hey, I got this thing, I didn't pay for it. Like, I don't know. And she was like, you're clearly meant to have it. Like, just thank you for letting me know I received this. And so I have. I've been listening to it, and this happened during Mercury retrograde. So I was sharing that like I've never been so grateful for Mercury retrograde shenanigans.
Yeah.
Because it was such a beautiful gift.
Mm.
And so I can like personally speak to that hypnotic track, and it has just been absolutely beautiful. And yeah, I'm excited for this new birthing relationship.
Yeah, I'm so glad you received it. And there are some people who are like, because I put on my story, I was like, oh well, it looks like some people got it. Awesome, no worries. Like, and there were some people who are like, wait, I just purchased it yesterday and I didn't get it for free. And I'm like, I'm just letting it decide who it needs to go to. I'm so sorry. And I'm so glad it found you and that you're getting to experience it. That was definitely like one of those co-creations where I'm like, it is not about it is I just need to put it out there. There has to be an exchange. That's what I heard when I was creating it, because I was like, oh, I really want to like put this out there for everyone. And I heard there needs to be an exchange because that's part of the experience. And so I've been really loosey-goosey with like what exchange means. I'm like, well, she bought the ticket, so whatever. She got like that's the exchange. Or like another client, I'm like, well, you already in exchange with me, so here you go. Like I'm just like, yeah, I'm excited for people to have that. It's really healing beyond just like reprogramming the mind. It's more so creating the capacity in the body for abundance to like be recoded and to hold it. So yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for saying yes and coming and sharing yourself and your stories and being vulnerable, and just all of it is such a pleasure. I'm so excited to share this with everybody. Just really, really, really grateful. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. It's been really amazing to have a space to put this all out here and to just be in space with you. So I'm really grateful as well.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you to everyone who's listening. Let us know you're listening. Leave a review, a rating, share it, all the things. So yeah, thank you everybody so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.